I like that his friends are literally just like, they're not saying they disagree with him. They're just saying it's going to be bad for his career prospects, which is funny because it turns out one of those guys was actually literally waiting to use this to tank his career prospects. All right, let's get to the new racial chats. The new racialized chats. Trump nominee says MLK Jr. holiday belongs in hell and that he has a Nazi streak, according to text. Paul Ingratia's bid to lead a whistleblower agency is set for Senate confirmation hearing Thursday. MLK Jr. was the 1960s George Floyd, and his, air quotes, holiday should be ended and tossed into the seventh circle of hell where it belongs. The response is, Jesus Christ. Paul Ingratia, President Donald Trump's embattled nominee to lead the Office of Special Counsel, told a group of fellow Republicans in a text chain that the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday should be tossed into the seventh circle of hell, and said he has a Nazi streak, according to a text chat viewed by Politico. Ingratia, who has a Senate confirmation hearing scheduled Thursday, made the remarks with a half dozen Republican operatives and influencers, according to the chat. MLK Jr. was the 1960s George Floyd on his holiday. Blah, blah. Jesus Christ, one participant responded. Using an Italian slur for black people, Ingratia wrote a month early, what's up with these Republican Italians, by the way? It's actually crazy. Like, it wasn't the last guy also Italian? What is happening? Anyway, seen by Politico, no bleep holidays from Kwanzaa to MLK Jr. Day to Black History Month to Juneteenth. This is eggplant in Italian. For the record, for those of you who don't know, it is a slur that Italians use towards black people. The word for eggplant, I believe. Every single one needs to be eviscerated. Politico interviewed, remember, I am the PhD of racism. Okay. Politico interviewed two people in the chat and granted them anonymity after they expressed concerns about the personal and professional repercussions. Dude, it's so awesome that these, like, the Republican operatives that want to get ahead want to shank other Republican operatives, and it's become like this weird knife fight where they just like leak Politico. It's not like these guys want to eradicate racism on their side. They just want to use it. They want to use it right now to basically take out some people while they have the opportunity to do so, which automatically helps them advance. And it's awesome. I'm here for it. Politico interviewed two people in the chat and granted them anonymity after they expressed concerns about personal professional repercussions. One retained the messages and showed the text chain in its entirety to Politico, which independently verified that the number listed on the chain belongs to Ingratia. The person said he came forward because he wants the government to be staffed with experienced people who are taken seriously. The second person has since deleted the chain and didn't recall specifics about it, but did confirm the discussions took place. A lawyer for Ingratia, Edward Andrew Paltzik, initially suggested that some of the texts were intended to be poking fun at liberals, though he didn't confirm they were authentic. Looks like these texts could be manipulated or are being provided with material context omitted. However, arguendo, even if the texts are authentic, they're clearly read as self-deprecating and satirical humor, making fun of the fact that liberals outlandishly and routinely call MAGA supporters Nazis, he wrote in a statement. I don't know, this doesn't seem like outlandish or out of context, but what do I know? Maybe he meant MLK Jr. Nope, there's really no way to. I was gonna try and do like a funny way to reframe what he's saying here within a more appropriate context, but he didn't really leave a lot of room for ambiguity. Yeah, I guess like maybe unless the follow-up text message was, is what I would say if I was a racist monster in the same way that Democrats present us as, right? Like maybe that's the follow-up text. Waiting for Vance to say this is obviously just a kid telling jokes. Black people into victims, the text showing Gracie remarked, blacks behave that way because that's their natural state. You can't change them. He then added, according to the chat, proof, all of Africa is a shithole and will always be a shithole, I assume is what he's saying. In February 2024, Ingratia wrote, we need competent white men in positions of leadership. The founding fathers were wrong that all men are created equal. We need to reject that part of our heritage, according to the text exchange. The founding fathers would not have allowed you to be in a position of leadership. You're Italian. You're an Italian Catholic. Straight white man. And in December 2023, Ingratia declared on X, exceptional white men are not only the builders of Western civilization, but are the ones most capable of appreciating the fruits of our heritage. What is this? One Saturday afternoon in October, my phone lit up with a notification. I glanced down at the message. Anna Lindsay Halligan here, it began. So began my text exchange with the top prosecutor for the Eastern District of Virginia. Incredible stuff. Cue the ADL response. This is a delicate moment. It's a new day, and yet so many are on edge. Paul belongs in the Hitler U with Uber Gruppenführer Steve Bannon. I do have streak in me from time to time. I will admit it. Never trust a Chinaman or Indian. Never. What the? He added extra letters onto that to be racist, and not even not even contemporary racism. I feel like that's what people use. It's like calling Asian people like Oriental or something. You know what I mean? In reality, Mr. Ingratiate has incredible support from the Jewish community because Jews know that Mr. Ingratiate is the furthest thing from a Nazi. In a subsequent statement to Politico a few days later, Palcic called out anonymous critics trying to hurt Ingratiate. In this age of AI, authentication of allegedly leaked messages which could be outright false, as doctored, manipulated, or lacking critical context is extremely difficult, he said. What is certain, though, is that there are individuals who cloak themselves in anonymity while executing their underhanded personal agendas to harm Mr. Ingratiate at all costs. We do not concede the authenticity of any of these purported messages. In May 2024, the group was bantering about a Trump campaign staffer who'd been hired in Georgia and was working on outreach to minority voters when Ingratiate suggested she didn't show enough deference to the founding fathers being white, according to the chat. Paul belongs in the Hitler Youth, with Steve Bannon, the first participant in the chat, wrote, referencing the paramilitary rank at Nazi Germany and the Republican strategist. Politico is not naming the participants to protect the identity of those interviewed for this article. To which he responded, I do have a streak in me from time to time. I will admit it. One of the people in the text group said in an interview that Ingratiate's comment was not taken as a joke, and 3 participants pushed back against Ingratiate during the text exchange that day. Referring to white nationalist Nick Fuentes in the Live from America show on the video sharing platform Rumble, a second member of the group replied, new Live from America show starring Nick Fuentes and Paul Adolph Ingratiate, to which Ingratiate wrote, Lamau, according to the group chat. The existence of the messages comes as Ingratiate's nomination. Wait, so he was publicly on Nick Fuentes' show? What is this? Breaking CNN is on covert audio. RFK Jr. praising a description of Trump and his supporters as belligerent idiots. Hold on. Let me just finish this article, please. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think that is an old audio. This one. Yeah, it's from a 2016 recording unearthed by CNN's K-File, where RFK Jr. indeed praised those harsh descriptions of Trump supporters and drew the Hitler comparison. We knew that already. 2 people in the Trump administration have openly compared him in a negative fashion to Adolf Hitler. One is J.D. Vance, and the other is RFK Jr. This was back in June. Trump has appointed one Paul Ingratiate, a known white supremacist, to lead the Office of Special Counsel. He went on a Nick Fuentes rally and wrote a Substack article titled Free Nick Fuentes. He has called Andrew Tate an extraordinary human being and the ancient ideal of excellence. He called the war in Gaza yet another psyop to distract Americans from celebrating Columbus Day. Wait, this guy's awesome. What the He is all over the place with he's like a Nazi, but also he's like really, really involved in the Italiophobia initiatives, you know? I think we could all admit at this stage that Israel, Palestine, much like Ukraine before it, and BLM before that, and COVID vaccine before that, was yet another psyop. He will have real power. He's a genuine anti-Semite. Yet for some reason, all the self-appointed anti-Semitism fighters are going after a woman of color who gave a speech against genocide today. It makes you wonder what the agenda of these accounts is. It certainly isn't fighting anti-Semitism. Yeah, no shit. So he would lead the Office of Special Counsel. Nothing on the new text yet, but it's time to attack Zoran. Elected officials and candidates should know that who they associate with sends signals to their constituents. At a time of skyrocketing anti-Semitism, this matters more than ever to the Jewish community. Imam Siraj Wahhaj has a history of supporting controversial figures involved in terrorism. He's been associated with groups that have a long history of spreading anti-Semitism. So at a time when anti-Jewish hate has surged to record-breaking levels, how does associating with Wahhaj demonstrate a commitment to protecting Jewish residents and all New Yorkers? Oh, awesome. This is the unindicted co-conspirator narratives, right? So Politico just revealed that a Trump nominee for a senior position in government described himself as having a Nazi streak. Not a word from Greenblatt or the ADL, but here's a long screed about a Muslim mayoral candidate standing next to someone in a photo. Not sure Jewish communities in the U.S. get how severe the anti-Semitic threat from MAGA right is, given how Greenblatt and the ADL seem to only obsess over the left, Muslims, pro-Palestine activists, while giving openly anti-Semitic right-wingers a pass. So dangerous. This is what's so strange about this fascinating phenomena that the ADL didn't used to actually engage in as much, but certainly started doing transparently after October 7. And it's that both Muslims and Jews in the United States of America, by and large, don't have a lot of smoke for one another, because most of the Islamophobia still overwhelmingly comes from right-wing neo-Nazi groups, and most of the anti-Semitism in most circumstances still overwhelmingly comes from right-wing neo-Nazi groups. So the ADL, up until like October 7, would, at the very least, in an effort to present itself as a serious institution that was tasked with combating bigotry of all forms, would actually actively tackle the right-wing groups and had like the anti-Semitism glossary, all this stuff. Post October 7, they just went full tilt. Like, you can be a open, avowed neo-Nazi. We're not going to yell at you. You only are a problem if you are an anti-Zionist. And they've also, ironically, heavily leaned into the whole like race fomenting like some sort of sectarian division amongst Muslims and Jews. How do you know the anti-Semitism isn't coming from the Muslims? Wait, what do you mean? Because I'm not oblivious to where the overwhelming majority of bigotry is coming from in this country. Partially because of the ADL's own work, ironically enough, pre-October 7. Now, what's interesting about this process also is that I would go so far as to say something controversial, okay? I would go so far as to say that is there anti-Semitic tendencies amongst the Muslim population? Of course. Are there Islamophobic tendencies amongst the Jewish population? Also, of course. And I would go so far as to say one is considered a bigotry that is not permissible. The other one is actually routinely promoted, which is precisely the reason why there is not a single Muslim politician that has ever said anything even remotely anti-Semitic, yet there are plenty of Jewish American politicians that have openly said the most heinous Islamophobic shit you've ever heard of. And it's not just Randy Fine either. Even Democrats have done the same thing. There's never been like a Charlottesville equivalent where a bunch of Muslims took to the streets and were like, will not replace us. Okay? Because Muslims, by and large, are a minority in this country. They know who is actually targeting them. As Zoran also correctly points out here, the same imam met with Mayor Bloomberg, met with Mayor de Blasio, campaigned alongside Eric Adams, and the only time it became an issue of national attention when I met with him. Mamdani, who earlier in the day smiled, waved, and stayed silent over the controversy, claimed critics were fired up because of his faith. It's true, by the way. He is a prominent religious figure in New York, and the only reason why this became a story is because Zoran is Muslim, and they want to the he's a scary Muslim narratives, and they ain't slick about it either. It's really fucked up. And what's crazy about it is that not only did all of these other previous mayors campaign with this guy, okay, the way that they're trying to claim that this person is actually secretly a terrorist is because he was an unindicted co-conspirator or unindicted conspirator, as in the person that was responsible for the World Trade Center bombing in 1993 had actually been to his mosque, and yet there was no connection between the imam and the attackers whatsoever, which is precisely why they were not indicted. It's ridiculous. That's because of the fact of my faith and because I'm on the precipice of winning this election, the Democratic frontrunner said, then turned his attention to rival candidate, former Governor Andrew Cuomo. It is so transparently racist, dude. And the Democratic Party is not even coming out and swinging in defense of Zoran Mamdani. That's how you know. I also realize how normalized shunning the Muslim community in New York City is. Cuomo not visiting mosques and getting zero flag versus Zoran visiting synagogues and still being criticized for not visiting the right ones. Yeah. Is this working anywhere? I don't know. I don't think it's like, I think Zoran is charismatic enough to overcome this. But like, it's not great. I think New York City is far too diverse and far too invested in his platform to give a about any of this stuff. But it's disgusting that these like supposedly liberal institutions are not saying a goddamn thing about it. I've already told you this before, but like all of the Zoran makes Jews feel less safe should be read in the same exact way that like white supremacist Christian pastors would be like, well, if we do miscegenation, then the white Christians feel unsafe. It's just racism. That's exactly what it is. Oh, I'm sorry. That seems like a you problem. Suck my open bigotry. And the silence from prominent Dems speaks volumes. Let's just call it racism. Just look how Cuomo even made Zoran look more threatening with a beard and shit. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know that like the age of woke is gone or whatever. And Muslims usually are the last people to ever come out and be like, dude, come on. This is like transparent Islamophobia. This is transparent bigotry. But like, I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing here? This is just so transparent. Anyway, let's get back to the Office of Special Counsel, an agency that investigates federal employee whistleblower complaints and discrimination claims among other sensitive work, is already in trouble. Earlier this month, Politico reported that Ingracia, 30, has been the subject of an internal investigation at the Department of Homeland Security, where he works as a White House liaison, after a sexual harassment complaint was filed against him. The woman who filed the complaint later withdrew it and said there was no wrongdoing. Ingracia's attorney denied the allegations. Spokespeople for the White House and DHS did not respond to requests for comment about the text messages. In July, Republican senators delayed Ingracia's nomination hearing, with one airing concerns about some statements about anti-Semitism. Ingracia made other racist remarks, according to the chain. In January 2024, he wrote of former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, "Never trust a," I'm not even going to read it now. I read it before, but, or an Indian, and then added, "Never," the text show. Ramaswamy, the son of Indian immigrants, declined to comment. A month later, discussing why some Republicans feel that Democrats make black people the victims, the text show Ingracia remarked, "Blacks behave that way because that's their natural state. You can't change them." He then added, according to the chat, "Proof, all of Africa's a shithole and always will be that way." May 2024 discussion surrounding the Nazi remark turned serious as Ingracia dug in. Ingracia at first remarked that Georgia operatives should read a book, if she's able to, on George Washington and America's founding. "Paul, you are coming across as a white nationalist, which is beneficial to nobody," a third participant in the chat replied. When Ingracia apparently said that defending our founding isn't white nationalist, that participant pushed back, saying Ingracia reflexively went to saying whites built the country. "They did," Ingracia said, according to the chat. That comment prompted the same participant to respond, "You're going to be in private practice one day. This shit will be around forever, brother." I like that his friends are literally just like, they're not saying they disagree with him. They're just saying it's going to be bad for his career prospects, which is funny because it turns out one of those guys was actually literally waiting to use this to tank his career prospects. Ingracia posted an image of paintings showing several founding fathers, including Washington, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, in the chat. "We should celebrate white men and Western civilization, and I will never back down from that," he wrote, according to the chain. The third participant of the group criticized Ingracia's white nationalist tone. Then he said was coming across with a tinge of racism. Second participant then said he sounded like a scumbag. "Oh, wow, Jesus." To which Ingracia replied, "Nah, it's fine. Don't be a boomer. I don't mind being a scumbag from time to time," the text show. "I said we're making Kwanzaa illegal in the next Trump admin. That was the gist of my tweet. No bleep holidays," Italian word for eggplant, which is to disparage black people and Sicilians. From Kwanzaa to MLK Day to Black History Month to Juneteenth, every single one needs to be eviscerated. In February 2024, Ingracia wrote, "We need competent white men in positions of leadership. The founding fathers were wrong that all men are created equal. We need to reject that part of our heritage." Ingracia's apparent comments in the text chain echo some of his public statements and associations. He has had ties to Fuentes and Andrew Tate, a far-right influencer who has been charged in Britain with human trafficking, which he denies. 1 month after he apparently made the Nazi comment in the group chat, Ingracia attended a rally for Fuentes, though he later claimed he didn't know who had organized the event and soon left. Fuentes did not respond to a request for comment. After Fuentes was kicked out of a Turning Point USA event in June 2024, Ingracia called it an awful decision. He also called the Israeli-Palestinian conflict a psyop a week after the October 7th Hamas attacks. That's the only thing that's going to make the ADL yell at him, by the way. The ADL is going to be like, "How dare you?" The I am Hitler is fine, but you think it's a psyop? The October 7th attack was a psyop? How dare you? In March 2023, he said that the education should focus on helping elevating the high IQ selection of your demographics. So, basically young men, straight white men. Oh, these guys are such losers. The person in the group chat who shared the messages, who has known Ingracia for several years and met him through Republican political circles, said that Ingracia's personality changed in recent years as he went from a young law student interested in conservative politics to an extreme ego-driven Trump loyalist. The person said the shift began after Ingracia, a Cornell Law School graduate, started working as a law clerk for the firm representing Tate and appeared several times on the War Room podcast with Bannon, who did not respond to a request for comment. He was too young and too inexperienced to deal with the fame, the person said. It was like giving an 18-year-old $10 million and saying, "Have at it, kid." Periodically, during the text chain, the group nudged Ingracia to tone down his rhetoric, especially if he wanted to work in a future Trump administration, according to the person. Well, he didn't do that, it seems. And now Politico has caught wind of these text messages. Many such cases. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Oh, that snitch was waiting for him to finish his collection. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, this guy wasn't exactly shy about his participation as an open neo-Nazi, referring to white nationalist Nick Fuentes in the Live from America show on video Rumble. Second member of the group replied, "New LFA show coming starring Nick Fuentes." Here it is, dude. Look. Like, it's not like this is a secret. He was just straight up aligned with Nick Fuentes publicly. Do these people not understand that that is like the clear-cut marker of someone being a white supremacist? This is so confusing to me. Like, what more do you need to see? He was sucking in Richard Spencer, but we couldn't tell.